Thank you so much for always joining me. I will get right to the point. One thing that I've acknowledged throughout my journeys is I began a cycle of feeling like my decisions were decisions that needed to be made to suffice whatever mood I felt like, or whatever feeling, or whatever I felt like I was lacking in my life. I got into relationships with the desire to have a family and to be a wife and to live the life that I felt was, it was supposed to be this way. And in that, in that, I always felt like every man that I met was supposed to be the man that I spent the rest of my life with. I never knew how to evaluate his standards, his morals, his values. I never knew how to consider his intentions behind. I didn't even know to look at those things as pure qualities in a man that would compliment or not compliment me. I didn't know that those things mattered when you choose to spend your life with somebody. I had always taken a lot of time to myself to really do whatever it was that I was doing, because I wasn't really working on myself or self-preservation. I was just living life, in a survival mind state, just all about what am I going to eat next? Where am I going to sleep next? What am I going to do? And in that mind state, relationships came and gone. And I got to a certain space in time where I sat back and I said, what have you learned from all of these experiences? What have you learned from these trial and errors? What have you connected to the kind of personalities and the characteristics and the mind states of the men that you've met? Each time you've ended up hurt, crying, unaware that most of these men harbored the same kind of energy, the same kind of characteristic, the same kind of personality. And it's so funny because in my last relationship, the guy actually reminded me so much of my dad. And I knew little about my dad. I didn't know much about my dad at all, but when I looked at the way he walked, when I looked at the way he spoke, his mannerisms and different things of that nature, how he talked to his children, he reminded me so much of my father. I realized that I was having these cycle of experiences, different faces, but the same bullshit. And I wasn't learning from them. And what it was that I desired and desire in a marriage, in a relationship, in a covenant was the whole, first comes love, then comes marriage, then comes the baby and the baby carriage, then comes the white picket fence with the house, just fantasy of how things are supposed to play itself out. And that has always been a vision of mine as it relates to the kind of woman that I desired to be in a relationship with my children, having one father and things of that nature. Well, in the process of understanding the power that comes from an active, connection with the father figure or the male entity that really does play a huge role in how you develop as a woman or as a man, I acknowledge that the mistakes that I made were very clueless. Like, there were times where I genuinely felt like, I didn't have a brain. Like my brain was not functioning to the degree that I needed it to because of the trauma and me growing through the childhood trauma and me growing through the choices that I've made to put myself in situations where people didn't really value who I was, because I really didn't understand what valuing myself really was. And, people say you are who you attract. And I'm like, how can I attract a person that wants to see me lose everything that I have? How can I attract a person that wants to hurt me? How can I attract that? And I sat back and I thought about it and I said, what if the characteristics that you're seeking or that you find attractive in these relationships are characteristics that are connected to your father, to your dad? And what if, by just heaven stands, if that made any fucking sense, just what if, because your dad may have had these characteristics mentally, physically, psychologically, it was the universe's God, the creator, your ancestor, it was their will to make sure that you weren't connected to that entity so that you would not be as damaged as you could have been being raised by someone who did not have his self together mentally. You know, I considered all things, but what I had to do is come to the realization within myself that I really had to find a way to not be as because I discipline me as it relates to, I'm never satisfied with, the surface level. And when I looked at the patterns and I finally sat back, through wisdom and looked over the relationships that I've experienced and the kind of the people that I attracted and that I gave the time of day, it was a pattern. And I had no clue what narcissism was. I had no clue. I mean, I'm up in I'm each year, I'm getting older and older. I mean, I'm getting younger and younger. I'm getting wiser and wiser. And I had no clue what narcissism was. I did not know that some of the people that I was dealing with had strong covert narcissist characteristics, psychotic characteristics. I did not have a clue of what certain things was. Not to point any fingers or call anybody out, but I'm looking at myself. I'm looking at the lack of development that women have when they grow up, when they grow up and have to make choices for themselves. When they grow up and you have to be your own guide. Whenever I got into relationships, I was always choosing just that one person. I always wanted to be the kind of gal who would have multiple people that I knew or that I was chilling with so that I wouldn't be just caught up on one person. But I always just focused on one person at a time. Whenever I was in a relationship, I never wanted to be the kind of woman that didn't want to take any opportunity to meet somebody and build and not take that seriously. So I made sure that I was always available. I also never wanted to be in a situation where, in most cases, the guy already had people that he was conversing and talking to. But in that space of me being in my solitude and doing me, I came into the relationship with nobody else on the side to really intervene with me building. So whenever I went in, I gave that person, that guy, all of me. Whether he deserved it or not, I never took the time to really figure out if he did or if he didn't. I just jumped right in. And it was like the quickness of it always left the result of, when it happens fast, it ends fast. When somebody told me that, it was like I registered it, but it just did not make sense to me that if it was real, why wouldn't it happen fast? These are all the negligent thoughts, beliefs, misunderstandings, lack of guidance, lack of self-assurance. I realized the people that I met were connected to different parts of me because there was something in that individual that attracted to me. Their dysfunctionalisms, that in my conscious and unconscious dysfunctionalisms, that attracted me to them, that made me want to be in a relationship with them because they had a quality or something about them that I did not have growing up as a child, or something that familiarized me with a level of abuse or something that I was experiencing myself as a child. So therefore, I was attracted to the dysfunctionalism of the situation, not really taking the time to really get to know a person for the essence and the core of who they are and what they really have come into my life for. And I ended up in situations that I had chosen to be in by my choice, but had always left me very sad and wondering what life would be like if I had the guidance. Would I have been obedient to that guidance? And it's crazy because we have a greater advantage when we don't grow up around individuals that may not have had our best interests at heart anyway. And the journey continues. It really does. The journey continues. Peace.